Welcome to this episode of the South Vermilion Show. We're here with John Macco, representative of the 88th District. And John, you have decades of business experience.
Right.
And now you're a government official.
Right.
Tell me how government assists business owners to how the government can help.
Well, that's an old joke, actually. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. But I think it's very, very valuable to have a lot of small business owners here in the capital. Because I think if you're going to talk about jobs, you probably should have created some.
Absolutely.
I think if you are going to talk about taxes, you probably should have paid some. And so I think those of us that have come from the business community offer a certain perspective on the rules and regulations that are in place. So I think one of the best things that we can do here is to get out of business's way. So we have a whole task force called the Red Tape Review, and their whole job is to go through statutes and different things that are obsolete, obscure, and get them off the books and make it easier for businesses to survive and thrive. Another way is to organize and work through some unique situations. So we have our office, particularly because I am chair of the Ways and Means Committee, so we have direct responsibility to keep an eye on the Department of Revenue. So we get unique cases where a business has a unique business and they are having a discrepancy with the Department of Revenue, whether relative to how things should be taxed or how they should be carried forward or how that's being done. And so we get involved in some of those things. Each of the agencies have what's called a legislative liaison person. So whether that's the Department of Revenue or the Department of Natural Resources or the Department of Transportation, things that would affect businesses, those departments have a legislative liaison person that is available to us, and they will come to us. We'll talk about the particular case and situation, try to move that forward and come up with a win-win situation for businesses. So we do a lot of that type of advocacy on an individual basis. Additionally, in the last 8 years, we've pruned an awful lot of rules and regulations and made it fairer for businesses to compete, for them to be able to bid on projects that they wouldn't normally have been kept from bidding on.
Okay.
And my number one thing is taxation. So the more things that we can do to streamline our tax code and make it fair, low, and simple, those are things I think that can help businesses. And then let businesses do its thing.
Exactly. We talked a little bit about, before we came on camera, about Uber moving into Wisconsin.
Sure.
And, really how the state, tell us a little bit about
Now,
that
that's a
situation.
good point. And the economy, the 21st century economy is changing so fast that there isn't rules, regulations, policies, procedures, or anything that deals with those things. And Uber was one of those cases. So here we had a new technology. It wasn't cabs. It wasn't, so how do we deal with that? And so we had to then, we normally would like to continue to push decision making as far down the line as we possibly can. So I am a strong advocate of giving local communities more power, more control, and giving them all of that. But in the Uber case, what was happening is we had thousands of communities, 72 counties, all kinds of different groups that were coming up with different rules and regulations as to background checks, insurance requirements, licensing requirements, and it was just really untenable for an Uber driver to have to comply with hundreds and hundreds of different types of regulations.
So would an Uber driver would have to, what county am I in right now, or what township?
Right.
Okay.
So those things that cross those lines, we try to standardize that and make it easier for them. So we did. So we put standard procedures in place. We talked to all of the stakeholders, the Towns Association, the Counties Association, the League of Municipalities, as well as the rideshare companies, and to come up with what I think is a really good bill that is working out very, very well, and come up with a standard way that a new technology like that can take place. Another new technology that we're dealing with now is just internet commerce. So what we're trying to do, and we will pass that today, we are calling it the Wayfarer Bill, and that bill passes today in this House. Oh, cool. And I've been very, very involved with that over the last 5 years. So what it does is it provides parity between regular brick and mortar retailers versus online retailers. So the sales tax was always due, but in the case of online retailers, the individual was going to was going to remit that tax.
Okay.
In the case of a brick and mortar retailer, as you know, the retailer collects it on behalf of the consumer and then remits it. And so that was an unfair advantage that online folks were exploiting. And so we standardized that, and we'll add parity to that. So now a brick and mortar store is on par with an online store.
And it should be.
It should be.
I mean, everything should be even that way, and that's great. Now, who brings that to your attention, or is it just somebody like yourself that you ordered something from an online store and you're like, boy, I didn't pay sales tax on this?
So on that particular case, I brought it forward. I mean, it was an issue. So we're very, very fortunate here is that we have some quality individuals that have certain expertises in certain areas, and then we rely on them to do the due diligence and bring some of these things to the rest of to our colleagues. So if it's in case of corrections issues or education issues. There's some folks that are extremely brilliant and bright on those issues. They do all the due diligence. They serve on several committees. In the case of tax issues, I've been a member of the National Council of State Legislators State and Local Task Force nationally for about 5 years now. Okay. And we were instrumental in bringing that challenge and bringing that then through the South Dakota Supreme Court and eventually through the U.S. Supreme Court, and then it eventually became law. And so we then moved that forward. Wisconsin is very, what's the right word? We're ahead of the game. We're ahead of the curve on some of this because we had a conference call just this morning on this very same issue. And there's only about 6 or 8 states that are actually where we are already in implementing this new retail parity discussion. And so we're way ahead of the curve on where we do that. But there's several of us here in the legislature that move that process forward, and I had a very vested interest in seeing that happen.
Sure.
And so now it's happening.
Well, thank you for your hard work, and really appreciate when there are entrepreneurs and business people kind of looking out for, for the business leaders and the people out there building companies, and that you understand it, and several of the people in the leadership understand it, which is
well, and you see it in how well the state is run. Mm-hmm. Wisconsin's one of the best run states in the nation. We're one of only 2 states that have a fully funded pension plan. Our pension plan is carrying $110 billion in capital, in cash, all fully funded, functioning and very, very well. We have a balanced budget. We are paying our bills on time, and we're running a surplus. And so it's absolutely fascinating when you get into some of these rooms on a national level and everybody's going around the room and introducing themselves, and then it comes to Wisconsin. We go, I'm from Wisconsin. You kind of hear everybody groan because we don't have the problems that so many other states have. Our friends in Minnesota are about to report a $2 billion budget shortfall. The problems in Illinois are unbelievable. Yeah. Louisiana is a mess. I don't know how you fix that.
I work with a lot of companies in Illinois, and they've served some government entities or hospitals, and they worried about getting paid.
And they do worry about getting paid. Their payables to just to vendors is fascinating. As a small business owner, can you imagine if you were providing any kind of service, floor covering services, janitorial services, automotive repair services to the state of Illinois, and you couldn't get paid on time? What that would do to your small family business.
I've seen it. I've seen people that are 90, 120 days, and they can't afford to, they can't cut them off either.
Right. But here's the connection we have to make. And so when you look at that and you go, hey, wait a minute, the state of Wisconsin is about a $350 billion annual GDP organization. In other words, we're about the same GDP as the country of Singapore, if you think about that. We burn through about $100 million every single day. Wow. Now think about that. So to run the city of Green Bay is about $105 million for the year. We burn through that in a day. To run the University of Wisconsin Green Bay is about $97 million. We burn through that in a day. So that's the magnitude of the state. And so when you look at the great things that are happening, when you drive into the southern part of the state and you see the Amazons and the Ulines and the Foxcons and all of the rest of the industry that's booming up there, when you look at up in Green Bay where you've got Titletown Tech and you've got Microsoft moving in, we are this far away from being the next Austin, Texas. Mm-hmm. And so that does not happen by accident. That happens by running a well-run organization, and that's what we're seeing now.
Well, thank you, and thanks to all your colleagues, and John, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
again. And
Thanks
this
for
was
having me.
great interview on really how, especially in the state of Wisconsin, government has really helped business owners be able to grow and continue to thrive. And one thing we didn't talk about, but they're attracting some major corporations, both from
That's right.
U.S. and abroad, to do more business here and to grow by having acquisitions in this, or having employees in the state of Wisconsin,
Yep.
which we all know we're great workers too, right?
Yep,
So
exactly.
all right, thank you very much for tuning in, and we're actually going to have John in a few other episodes as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Brian.